Hi, it's December 2010 and I'm in the lucky position. We're launching the new 2009 Poetica Chardonnay. I'm in the lucky position that I'm getting a chance to taste through some of the older Chardonnays, some of the older Poeticas, as well as the 2009. 2009 is really exciting. We don't have a label on it yet. We do have the poem available, and in fact it's on another clip, so I won't read it today, but it's a really exciting wine. It's exciting for a bunch of different reasons. First of all, of course, it's our first estate bottled Chardonnay that we're releasing as a Poetica. It's the first biodynamic Chardonnay that we've released as a Poetica. That's the technical side of it. The great side is that it's a fabulous, fabulous wine. When I taste it and smell it, it's still young, but it's got a little bit of yeast to it still. It's an intense nose. It's a nice pale golden color. The color's absolutely correct. The smell, it's undeveloped at this point. It hasn't got all those nuances of butterscotch and caramel that I love, which will come in time. But it's intense nose of honeysuckle, as I say, a touch of yeast, a little hint of butterscotch coming in, but and a little bit of oak. On the palate, it just explodes. Difficult to talk because of the acidity and the crispness. It's got some nice oak to it, a little bit of toast, a little bit of butterscotch coming from that toast, some vanilla. The fruit is still fairly plain and simple. It's appley rather than complex, but incredibly, incredibly intense. I'm going to say that I'm looking forward to this developing over the next 3 to 10 or 3 to 15 years. It's going to become more complex. The butterscotch is going to arise. It's going to be a truly outstanding wine. There was no 2008 Poetica. We decided not to do it. We harvested our first Chardonnay off the vineyard, made it into a whimsy. I wondered whether it was good enough to be released as a Poetica. Now I taste the 2009 and I realized that the 2008 was a great wine, but the decision to make it as a whimsy rather than a Poetica was a really good one. So from the 2009, we go right back to 2007. The 07, everybody's hailing the 07 as a fabulous year. They're absolutely correct when you're talking about Bordeaux Reds. Chardonnay, it's good. I don't think it's a patch on the 2009, and we're hoping the 2010. Starting again to get a little bit of buttery character to it. A fair bit of lactic, so the malolactic has gone all the way through. It's big, some quince character to it. The butterscotch again is starting to come, the vanilla. Great richness on the palate, so it's thick and almost viscous. It has a fairly lactic side to it, which is nice. To my mind, it's almost a Californian style. It's very good. I don't think it will last as long as the 2009 will. For drinking today, it's absolutely delicious. I'd use it with things like rich dishes like lobster. What else? Maybe some smoked salmon. There's a little bit of the lactic side, which would, you think of smoked salmon or salmon and how well it pairs with a bit of cream cheese. That same sort of idea. The lobster, I would do it with a lobster with a cream sauce or a cheese sauce to it rather than just plain drawn butter. Again, my favorite with all of these great Chardonnays is simple roast chicken or even better yet, a roast turkey. Good wine. It's not, I don't think it's the strongest of the Poeticas. Great flavors, interesting, slightly different. 2007 is an anomaly as far as Ontario Chardonnays are concerned. We'll go to the 2006. Cooler, much more classic year for Chardonnay. A little bit more golden color if you look at the difference. Starting to gold up a bit. A broader smell, a little bit less butter on it. More limey, a little more citrus, I think. More classic Chardonnay. Sorry, classic cool climate Chardonnay anyway. Still very young. On the palate, Great fresh acidity. More my style, more cool climate Chardonnay style than the 2007 was. 2007 may be a little bit more mainstream, as I say, more Californian, more cool Australian style, more Pathway Chardonnay, less typical Ontario Chardonnay, less classic. The 2006 Chardonnay was one of the wines that was shown in the UK and was highly marked by Jancis Robinson and all of her compatriots. Great wine, still very, very young. Typical, we'll talk about this when we're finished, is how long these wines will continue to show beautifully. 2005, again, a fairly classic, typical vintage for Ontario as far as Chardonnays are concerned. A little less nose than the 2006. Again, a little bit of that lactic style. A little broader, less sharp acidity, more lactic, a little further in the malolactic style. A little dumb phase right now, delicious. I've tasted this wine showing a little bit better, so I think it's going to go down for a little while and come back up again. It's a 5-year-old Chardonnay, and at this point, it's a typical stage that it's going through. Rather than Merceau, I'm finding that much more Chablis-like, a little less broad-shouldered. 2004 Chardonnay, very cool summer. In fact, there was only one reserve wine, reserve red, made at Southbrook. That was our 2004 Syrah, which originally was going to be Poetica and instead came out a couple of years ago as a whimsy. Great wine. All of the Cabernets were declassified into either straight Cabernet or Cabernet Merlot Shiraz. That tends to make me think that it's going to be an interesting or a very good Chardonnay year. We're finding that the cooler years for Chardonnay tend to be better. The better years for Chardonnay are not necessarily the great years for reds. Wow, again, cheesy in a good way. That sort of fresh camembert style, buttery, the caramel flavors, the Roundtree's Macintosh butterscotch character is coming through. Yesterday, when we were pouring this at a part of this retrospective tasting, for most people, this was actually their favorite of the Poeticas. That's the 2004. Big, rich character, not as acidic as the 2000, or sharp as the 2006, particularly. A little bit sharper than the 2005 as well. Starting to become absolutely classic Burgundian Chardonnay. Lots and lots of character of butterscotch and with a little bit of butter in there, some vanilla. The secondary fruit character, the apples and the pears, is starting to become muted, and up comes the tertiary flavors like butterscotch and quince and butter. Interesting wine. Now we go to the 2003. It has one of my favorite labels on it. It's the BP Nichols label that we've done as a poster. Every sensitive young man in the 1970s in university had one of these posters on his wall in the hopes it would help him get lucky. Didn't work for me. But the wine is great as well. Again, it's got a little bit of that fresh cheese character to it. It's the lactic acid that is a response to. Originally, you get malic acid, and then that's converted into lactic acid under mallow. Here's where we start to get that bright golden color with butterscotch. Lots and lots of character there. Absolutely delicious wines. These are the wines that you don't pour bottle after bottle of. It's the wines that you pull out for your special guest with a special meal, and that could be for 2 or it could be 4 or 6. You don't need a huge amount of it because the wines have so much character to them. Full of flavors. How long will these wines last? The 98 is still drinking absolutely wonderfully. The 2003 and the 2004 will last as long as the 1998 did, so they've got 4 or 5 years ahead of them. The 2007, I think I would drink possibly the next vintage that I would drink, or tied with the 03 or the 04. So the 2007 is I think will be the shortest lived. I would drink most of it up in the next 6 years. We're not talking needing to drink it up before 6 years. One of the most interesting wines that I've got at this tasting or sitting at this table is the 2009. I think it might be the best of the bunch, but it's really interesting to taste through a group of wines like this and go, what's the similarity? Why were these wines chosen as Poetica? Right across the board, bright color, intense flavor, intense acidity, the ability to age, viscous mouthfeel, comes from the barrel fermentation. They're all thick on the palate. They're filling. Somebody once told me that Chardonnay really is the reddest of all of the white wines. This tasting will back that up. Wines that are long aged, complex. These are not wines when somebody says, "Oh, just give me a glass of white wine." These are wines to drink when you have the opportunity to sit back, to compare, to contrast. There's 3 or 4 other wineries, at least in Ontario, that are making wines of this caliber. But any one of these wines, I would be happy to put up against great white Burgundies and say, this is what we can do in Ontario. Enjoy.